Our lesson today is introducing yourself in English. So you're welcome to this very exciting lesson on introducing yourself in English. Sometimes, or most times, we need to introduce ourselves for so many reasons. And whenever you are faced with the challenge of introducing yourself in English, then you should do some of these things we are going to state in this lesson today. Introducing yourself. The first lesson we are going to take is a conversation between Peter and Jane. Peter says hello. Jane says hi. Then Peter says, my name is Peter. What's your name? Jane says, my name is Jane. Nice to meet you. Peter says, it's a pleasure. This is a great party. Jane says, yes, it is. Where are you from? Peter now says, I'm from Amsterdam. Jane says, Amsterdam? Are you German? Peter says, no, I am not German. I am Dutch. Jane now says, oh, you are Dutch. Sorry about that. Peter now says, that's okay. Where are you from? Jane says, I'm from London, but I am not British. Peter now says, no, what are you? Jane says, well, my parents were Spanish, so I am Spanish too. Peter now says, that's very interesting. Spain is a beautiful country. Jane says, thank you, that's a wonderful place. I take it again. Jane says, thank you, it is a wonderful place. So this is a very, very interesting conversation, and you can see how each of the characters answers the question of the other and asks his or her own question. Okay, so first of all, each of the character will first of all answer the question posed by the other, and then after answering the question, she will put up his or her own question. And so that keeps the conversation going. That kept the conversation moving. And so this is a sample introduction of two people who met themselves and who want to know about themselves. So we have some key vocabularies here. One of them is, my name is. That is basic. You must have to say your name, you must have to mention your name when you are introducing yourself. Another basic or key vocabulary is, where are you from? Where are you from? This is a very, very key question. You have to ask this kind of question when you meet a new person you've not known. So the answer is, I am from. You mention your city or your country. Are you, as in the conversation, are you Spanish? Are you American? Are you German? These are key vocabularies in the cited conversation. Okay, Now, another thing we have to learn is how to introduce other people. We have seen how somebody can introduce him or herself, but sometimes you may need to introduce another person. And in this case, there is a way to do it. Okay, so there are both formal and informal situations of introduction involving a third party or introducing a third person. So we're going to take the first case, which is the introduction in formal situations. This is a kind of formal introduction. The conversation is between three. It will be between three people. Okay, Ken, Peter, and Mary. Ken, Peter, and Mary. Now Ken says, "Peter, I'd like you to meet Mary." Now Peter says, "It's a pleasure to meet you." Peter is greeting Mary. Now Mary says, "It's a pleasure to meet you too." Ken now says, "Mary works for so and so company. Mary works for this company, for the financial institution." Ken has to now tell Peter what Mary does. So Ken is introducing Mary. Okay, so introducing another person. So the key thing in a formal introduction is that you could see when Peter says, "It's a pleasure to meet you," Mary replied and says, "It's a pleasure to meet you too." It is a mark of courtesy. Okay, you repeat the same thing. Okay, it shows that you are very humble. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is introduction in informal situation. Introductions in informal situations. Now, look at a sample introduction. Ken says, "Peter, this is Mary." Okay, you can say, "This is Mary." That is informal. Now, Peter says, "Hi, how are you?" Okay, you can see Mary now says, "Hello, pleased to meet you." Now, Ken now goes ahead to say, "Mary works for so and so company." So Ken still does the introduction of Mary, but then the reply is like, "Hi, how are you?" It's informal. Okay. Mary now says, "Hello, pleased to meet you," and all that. So this is a situation of informal setting or informal situation. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is some common introductory phrases. Some common introductory phrases. Okay, look at this now. You mention your name, like the first line we have, you mention your name. "I don't think you've met me," or "we've met." Sorry, you mention the like, "John, I don't think we've met," or "John, I don't think you've met Mary." "John, I don't think you've met Mary." So you are kind of telling John, you are initiating the introduction process between John and Mary. You are the third person, you want to introduce Mary to John. "John, I don't think you've met Mary." Okay. "I don't think you know Jacinta." "I don't think you know Peter." "I don't think you know Helen." These are introductory phrases. "May I introduce you to?" "May I introduce you to John?" "May I introduce you to David?" This is an introductory phrase. "John, do you know Peter?" You want John to meet Peter. "John, do you know Peter?" "David, I'd like you to meet John." These are introductory phrases, and they are used for introduction. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is saying hello and saying goodbye. This is a kind of summary. When you meet somebody, you say hello. Hello, Peter, how are you? Now, Peter now says, fine, thanks. How are you? Jane now says, I'm fine, thank you. Now, after talking for a long time or after some prolonged period of talking, Peter now says, goodbye, Jane, see you tomorrow. Now, Jane says, goodbye or bye-bye, Peter. Have a nice evening. Peter now finally says, thank you too. And that is saying hello and saying goodbye. Okay, when you reply these messages, it shows that you have interest in the other person and you are very much happy to meet the other person. And so that is how to do introduction. That is how introduction is done. Okay. So finally, we are going to look at the key vocabularies. Key vocabularies in all this. So key phrases to remember include hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. See you this weekend. See you next week. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening. Have a nice week. Have a good night. These are key vocabularies. See you next time.